All right, let's jump into reacts for the day and start out with a level cap video titled Star Citizen's Slow Recovery. Star Citizen's Slow Recovery. Certainly slow. I don't
Star
even know if
Citizen
it'll
has been
exist.
in what's basically physical rehabilitation for over a month. The massive 3.18 patch that introduced persistent entity streaming technology to the game also broke the online experience so badly that the game is basically learning to walk all over again. And it's a slow, complex process that seems like it might actually get worse before it gets better. Depending on somewhat random circumstances, currently when you log on to the game, you may not be able to actually do so. And while this has improved massively over the course of the past month, many are still having problems with the login process. Once
He said it. He said massive.
logged into the persistent universe, your experiences may vary from considerably more buggy than usual to basically unplayable. For me, it's been a very trying experience, as much of the content that I've really enjoyed with Star Citizen is now inundated with new bugs and even old bugs. Going after bounty targets often results in random, unexplained deaths, locations sometimes don't spawn in, looting
Also, the bounties, I learned this yesterday from Space Cutlet. Bounties are not affected by PES. So when you Alt F4, they just disappear and you lose the bounty still. So bounties still can just leave the game and
doesn't work,
not
you
have
get
any
stuck in
issues.
your pilot seat of your spaceship, there's random crashes, NPCs don't spawn, preventing mission completion, missions
NPCs not spawning, preventing mission completion has affected nearly every mission I've tried to play.
don't register after accepting them or even after completing them, and of course all the other bugs that were in Star Citizen before this patch came out are still pretty much there. Basically, it's a buggier, less stable experience than what it was before. And players are also contending with new problems caused by the persistent entity streaming tech. Tons of abandoned spaceships forever floating in space around stations, and wrecks outside of popular landing zones are
We'll see. The most recent 3.18.2 patch says that they've gotten more aggressive with cleanup, so we'll see about that.
polluting
Hopefully
the
not.
landing pads themselves or the environment. Due to persistent entity streaming, ships, bodies, and loot will basically persist in space or on a planet forever, which is very cool, but obviously leads to tons of issues. I think CIG is trying to address this in the upcoming patches, but it's still certainly become a flight hazard and a major performance chunker as well. Not to mention, I'm not sure CIG really wants the entirety of space to look like a giant trash dump. And I'm sure Cloud
No, but it's still quite cool when you do go to a cave, and then there's the what's left of all the people that died there, you know? So they do have to think of the best logical solution to make this as good as possible, but at the same time keep the cool elements of it, right? Let's really ask this question. In my opinion, this PES thing with ships just being left all over the place has made the game both much better, but also has definitely has its negatives. So I really like that when I go to a place, there is history behind it. There are bodies left over. There is cargo left over and things to salvage. It just comes down to coming up with the best solutions to resolve it. And the game has a lot of these quantum travel locations that you can go to, so they're we all end up going to a lot of these places together, maybe not at the same time, but we all see the same things, and the opportunities I don't think should be on the players to dispose of things, but it is sort of crazy that a week later you could, leave a ship there, end up on the same server, and your ship is there. Right? I think stations should be cleaned up regularly. I think outposts should be cleaned up regularly. But I think where the game can really succeed is just out in the verse, out on a planet randomly somewhere. Maybe caves should not be cleaned up as quickly, things like that. So I think that's where you can get a real win.
Imperium Games is learning and deciding on the best course of action to fix persistent issues, it does seem like at least some of these fixes could be reliant on new game tech that could be a ways off in development, such as hole munching, which will allow other players to use salvage ships to actually eat abandoned ships around the universe. This could allow players to actually clean up this garbage, but they're still...
I just don't think player solutions are the solution. I think it still is a server cleanup thing that needs to happen.
Some tech issues getting in the way before they can do this. Now, unfortunately, much of the alpha experience has been like this, with new systems being implemented before they have the subsystems that make them function as intended. It's been a game of half measures, creating a world...
Laziest solution's the player one? No, it's not. That requires the most work. They can just clean up everything now with a click of a button, right? It just wouldn't be realistic and it wouldn't be what they want. They could just be like, all right, there's this many ships in this area, clean them up, right? That's the lazy solution, is just change some values. I think they're really trying to like find a good middle ground because they see the potential that PES has of being like really interesting and really cool, and then at the same time know that it has its problems.
That plays will kind of half like the vision of the final product. The professions are only partially implemented, and most ships are missing functionality and features that will really allow them to fully realize their designed purposes. But of course, that's the nature of an open development process and a public alpha that was not intended to be a consistently enjoyable experience. Star Citizen's alpha represents the evolution of their tech as they develop it, not necessarily as it would make sense to release to players in a finished, finalized, polished, or even enjoyable state. And in that sense, Star Citizen is unlike any other game that I've played, both in its concept and from a development experience. What you're logging in to play is such a far cry from the final vision that it can be frustrating trying to have an enjoyable experience.
Level Cap's finally coming around. It's only taken about a year, but he's finally realizing that this is not the greatest thing ever.
Currently, the hardest thing for me is transitioning from patches like 3.16 and 3.17 that were stable enough experiences. I could log on and play missions and group up consistently for the most part to have a pretty good time, but 3.18 has injected enough problems to push the game back past that threshold of what I consider to be an enjoyable experience. Now, over the past month, the developers have been working on back-end fixes, new hotfix patches.
And I also think the months leading up to 3.18, they communicated fairly well that this was going to be a complete dumpster fire. Now, nobody, not myself, not I think any of the devs expected it to be this bad. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in Star Citizen history. Somebody said something about like people not being able to log in 2.0. Oh, okay, but there was like significantly less people and all these things. I don't know. Maybe that was, I don't even remember that. It was so long ago. But for me, this is the worst patch I've ever experienced, and by like significant margins. So they did communicate. Like my expectations were very low, leading into 3.18. So like, I don't know. I've been like the least disappointed out of like all the content creators, me of all people. I've just kind of been like, whatever, I'll just like jump in and goof around and play what's fun for a little while, and then I'll like go play Everspace 2 or try other games or like whatever. I think I've been like the least frustrated. I think a lot of people have been really, really annoyed. And it's funny to see the people who are annoyed by this.
And pushing toward two major fix-it patches, 3.18.1 and 3.18.2, both which will allegedly update and fix flaws with the system. One of the trickier problems with this 3.18 patch is that it worked well on the test server environment, but when deployed at scale, the database and ingest system just ran into tons of problems. So once again, testing the fixes in the test server environment may once again lead to the inability to stress the system with larger player numbers. Hopefully
we have no idea if 3.18.2 is going to be good, because there is I don't think at the same scale, but there's a possibility that everyone that got kind of screwed over, myself included, trying to get into 3.18 are going to be excited to play 3.18.2, and then we run into the same problems again.
Data being received from the live build is enough for the devs to really iron out the bigger issues and return some stability to the game. However, due to the sheer number of new problems that have been created, it seems like we have a long road ahead before Star Citizen returns to a state in which I feel like it's considerably more enjoyable. A somewhat disappointing Reddit post from a few days ago shared that testing the 3.18.2 patch has been a similarly buggy and unenjoyable experience, not really leading me to believe that
I mean, they're running Xenothread at the same time. Like, I tried to do just random, I think it was like salvage or whatever yesterday, and you just run into these massive hiccups because the Idris is spawning or whatever.
Due for a major reprieve anytime soon. In the meantime, CIG continues to forge ahead with the rest of their development while dedicated teams work on ironing out these bugs. Some of the previous month's Inside Star Citizen reports showed off some really cool new tech, like a new handheld tractor beam. It's a larger handheld tractor beam that'll allow players to manipulate larger objects and even light spacecraft, which will certainly inject more.
This is not new. This is years old. This is my issue with the current video content, actually. I have real issues with the current video content and them taking the liberties that they have. You have a person who, level cap, who actually follows the game quite regularly, has no idea that this is this thing is a 5-year-old weapon that they just never put in the game yet. And all of this was a meme. Right? Like, the dev said that they might consider doing something like that. But this was all a meme.
More player agency and frankly fun into the universe. This is in preparation for more cargo-related gameplay and the need to move larger containers around space. Players will also be able to remove and replace weapons and modules from ships, allowing for more salvage and replacement opportunities. Destroying a ship could result in some new components and weapons for your ship, or at least ones that you can take and then sell once you get to a store. Or at least ones that you can take, put in your cargo hold, and then sell at a later date. There's also an overhaul for the major city of Lorville that's continuously teased. It's also scheduled for release soon, which looks very nice. There's new atmospherics coming to Hearst.
Is Lorville 318? Or excuse me, 319?
And new denser forests are being teased from Microtech as well. New vehicles and spaceships are being shown off with the new luxury ground vehicle, the Lynx, and some new 600i turrets, and the new dedicated tractor beam tugboat ship, the Argo SRV, plus tons of other little Easter eggs and teasers. Meanwhile, the behind-the-scenes reports for the single-player Squadron 42 sound like good progress is being made, with rumors still suggesting that its release date might actually be in the not-so-distant future. But again, Star Citizen,
wherever those rumors are coming from, they're so stupid. They're so stupid.
And release dates are basically a meme at this point, so take that with a grain of salt. Being a fan of Star Citizen is like riding an emotional roller coaster. At times you'll be over the moon hyped and having incredible game world experiences. Other times you'll be barely able to log in or constantly running into bugs that prevent you from doing what you want. Longer term fans know this well, and people just getting into Star Citizen will undoubtedly learn this over time. The persistent universe experience in the game is undeniably in a slump right
now. All right, I have to address this. ZBAM in chat, it's not really smart to bring new content without fixing main issue, which affects the game very bad. No, like, that's basically how games are made, and that's the issue. It's not really smart if you plan on running a live game, but the games are all like, you bring in all the features in a kind of not polished state, and then you prototype them, and then you polish them, you get feedback on them, and then you make them better. CIG has been doing that over the course of the last 10 years. Is like, all right, all the features they want to bring in are basically like, let's call them careers: salvaging, mining, medical, cargo, exploration, bounty hunting, pirating, so on and so forth, right? So they're adding all these things into the game, and they're not in a good state. But every time you add things into the game, what happens? More bugs happen, and it causes more issues. It doesn't make sense if you want the live game to be fun, but they don't care if the live game is fun because they want to make the end game or whatever. They want to finish the game at some point. We think. We don't. And, you know, who knows? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it feels, but that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way games are made, and they're like in this middle ground of pretending like the game is playable when everything they do counteracts making it playable. So like I get the point that you're making, but at the same time, it is the way it is. So saying it's not really smart isn't really appropriate.
Now, as CIG works on the problems created by pushing their tech to the next level of what's possible in gaming. Persistence at this scale,
like we just end up having patches like this when they do things like this. It just is what it is. I think this is so worth the struggle that we're dealing with, because the game gets infinitely better than it was before. Just by having persistence. When you down somebody, you actually are able to loot their body. It doesn't just disappear. If you die, you come back, your body's there. Like, that is immediately a better situation than we had in the past. Way better. I don't think you understand, like, just how bad of an experience this was in 3.17 in comparison. Like, when 3.18 is playable, when you're playing it and things aren't all falling apart around you, it is so much better.
Has never been done before, and CIG is determined to make it work, and I do believe that they will. But it's definitely going to take a bit more time, and I'll be here to cover it as they progress. Are you guys fans of Star Citizen? And if so, do you think 2023 is going to show major strides for the game, or rather baby steps on the journey toward the long-awaited 4.0 update, which will give us server meshing in a multi-system universe? Let me know in the comments. And up next, check out this video showcasing all the crazy weapons that you can use in Star Citizen. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.
I think the big thing about 2023 is, first off, thank you, Level. And second, I think the big thing with 2023 is as simple as this: is we're obviously not going to get 4.0. And second, what I do see on the extreme positive side is that every bit of work being done by the teams that touch players. God damn it, my camera, dude. I don't know why this keeps happening. 1 second, let me fix it. Wrong. There we go. This is super frustrating. There we go. It just like overheats and dies. The camera isn't overheating and dying. The capture card that uses it overheats and dies. But whatever. So little hiccup there. But then basically what I was saying is the positive side of things is that every team that works on gameplay elements that players touch are all doing things that are improving the game, making it a little bit more fun, I think. So that's cool.